Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared, and with him was a crowd armed with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests, the teachers of the law and the elders. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. "The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard." One thing that struck me when I was reading today's Gospel is the unusual response of Jesus to Judas Iscariot's betrayal. Judas had already arranged it in conversation with the religious authorities. How was he feeling, I wonder, about his course of action? Listen to some thoughts from Nick Fawcett on what may have been going through Judas's mind. "Do what you have to do," he told me. And I realized as he looked at me, from the expression in his eyes, that he knew full well what I'd been up to and understood precisely what I had planned for later that evening. Call me a fool, but I thought until then I'd covered my tracks, played the part of a doting disciple to a T. And I was right up to a point, for my fellow apostles fell for it, hook, line and sinker. You should have seen their faces when Jesus suddenly turned during supper and solemnly announced that one of us would betray him. "Who is it, Lord?" they gasped. "Surely not I." But they actually believed it might be as much one of them as me. Not Jesus, though. I realized the moment he looked at me that there was no pulling the wool over his eyes. He saw through the charade, behind the lamb to the wolf, beneath the dove to the serpent. And suddenly I was ashamed, sickened by what I was doing, disgusted at what I'd become. I should have stopped it there and then, confessed everything before them all and begged for mercy, but I didn't. I was too proud, afraid of losing face, terrified of what Caiaphas might do to me if I failed to deliver the goods. So I slithered out of the room, leaving the rest of them wide-eyed in disbelief. It still wasn't too late. Even then, I could have called a halt to the whole business, and I only wish I had. But I didn't. I led the soldiers into the garden and greeted Jesus with a kiss, the last revolting act of a repulsive evening. It was bad enough betraying a friend, but what made it worse was that we'd eaten together such a short time before. He'd washed my feet, shared bread and wine, kept faith with me to the very last, despite everything. If he'd cursed me, accused me, rebuked me, it would have made it easier. If he'd only shown some sign of resentment, maybe then I could have lived with myself, knowing he wasn't so perfect after all. But there was none of that. A hint of sorrow perhaps, but apart from that, only love, compassion, forgiveness. He knew what was happening, yet it made no difference. He knew I was leading him to his death, and he carried on regardless. Why? You tell me. I only hope he had more idea what he was doing than I had. How to reflect on Judas's betrayal. Judas is the treasurer of Jesus' apostles. Thus he is the keeper of their money bag. Surely you would only allow someone to hold your money if you trust him. Jesus and the apostles trusted Judas. However, despite this trust, Judas still betrayed his friend Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Think how you would feel if you found out that a very close and trusted friend of yours betrayed you. Can you imagine that this friend who has been with you for so long suddenly turned against you? It is indeed a heartbreaking experience when a treasured friend becomes unfaithful, drifts away from you, and forgets the relationship you built together. And yet it happens frequently in our world. But in spite of the betrayal of Judas, Jesus continues to be faithful to him as his friend. This part of the Passion narrative also draws our attention to the Passover meal. The Jewish Passover celebrates God's faithfulness to his chosen people. God liberated them from slavery in Egypt. In the Gospel story, Jesus invited his apostles to look for a place to stay and celebrate Passover with him, even though he knew that one of them would betray him. The betrayal takes place at a festival celebrating faithfulness. What irony. But do we reflect on our own lives? Have there been times we have been less than loyal to a friend? Times when we just wanted to be part of a conversation which mocked or made fun of another friend? And have there been times that we've become unfaithful to Jesus? Consider that despite all that he suffered, he continues to be faithful to us, no matter how much we hurt him. To the unfaithful, Jesus responds with faithfulness. Today, let us beg for the grace of faithfulness and fidelity. No matter where we found ourselves in life, let us try our best to remain faithful to Jesus. No matter how hard and painful our situation, stay faithful to Jesus. Fidelity is lived out every moment of our lives. Choose to be faithful. Remain faithful to your friend as he is faithful to you.